Hello, this is Fran, W1FJM. I've been asked by one of my friends to put together a YouTube about call sign routing. This is going to be somewhat of a dialogue with some video attached to it showing how to put the entries in a radio, or not how, but showing what entries you need in a radio depending upon what type of call sign routing you're going to do. Call sign routing allows you via your radio to direct where you want your transmissions to go. Unlike analog, a DSTAR radio controls everything about your transmissions across the network. There are several types of routing. One is call sign routing, where you can tell your radio to route the traffic across the DSTAR network to an individual's call sign that you might be wanting to talk to but don't know where they are. The system will find them, or at least it will find where they last transmitted. That's a key point. Where they last transmitted doesn't mean they are there. Another type of routing is called zone routing, or some people call it source routing. This is where you can route your signal to another endpoint, namely a repeater. So if you want to just get your information to a specific repeater, or your call to a specific repeater, and not care who's there, you could route it just to the repeater. Then there are things like CCS7 routing. It gets a little more complicated. In order to do that, you need a CCS number, which is the same as a DMR number. And then there's another way to kind of talk to a group of people, maybe like a chat group, and that would be through a StarNet repeater. And I will touch upon each of those as we go along. So let's go back to call sign routing, either source routing or call sign routing. There's a downside to that. You don't know when you route your signal whether there is already a conversation taking place at the end point where your signal will end up, because you can't hear them. The only way you could actually tell if maybe there's a conversation going on is you would have to go to dstarusers.org and find the dashboard for that particular repeater if you were doing a zone route, or look to see via the call signs if the party you're looking for has transmitted somewhere. Doing call sign routing versus zone routing is a little more difficult to find out if there's activity where the person last transmitted, because you don't know where they last transmitted. The downside of it is that when you make that call, whether it is a call sign route or a zone route, you are going to break into, or at least possibly break into, a conversation that's already taking place. If there's people talking already when your data comes across to that particular endpoint, they won't hear you, and you won't know that. So all you can do is keep trying. It's very important, I think, that when you do a call sign route, or a route of any type, that you let people know you're doing that. The call might go something like this. This is W1FJM calling KB1AEV via call sign routing. Or you might say KB1AEV, this is W1FJM, call sign routing. so that the people at the receiving end, including whoever you're looking for if they are there, knows how you're finding them or how you're coming across to that particular endpoint. If you don't do that, people are going to be scratching their heads saying, what's going on? Especially if you break into a conversation, if you catch them in the middle. So I think it is very important to do that. And do it multiple times before you let go of the PTT. Because in order for somebody to respond to you, they need to take an action. And what action that is dependent upon how they like to use their radio. But in some way, shape, or form, they need to get your call sign into your call of their radio so that they can respond. Because unlike linking, call sign routing does not link the two endpoints. It just routes the traffic across the network. Now I'm going to show you how you would set up your radio to do a call sign route. In this instance, I'm going to try to call my friend KB1AEV. I don't know where he is. So I go into my your call field, which is on a 5100A, the 2 field, and I plug in the call sign of my friend. No slashes, no dashes, no spaces, just their call sign. Now, because the 5100 is difficult to show the other 2 fields, what you need to do is go into the RPT1 field and put in the call sign of your local repeater that you're on. In this case, it's W1CDG space C, because it has to have the module. I also need to tell it that I want it to go out the gateway. So in the RPT2 field, you would put in the same call sign with a G in the 8th position. The C in RPT1 and the G in RPT2 need to both be in the 8th position. And that's how the radio would look for a call sign route. Code my your call field to do a zone route. I want my transmissions to go to AA1HD port C. So the way I tell the system to do that is I put a / in front of the call sign of the repeater. In this case, a space, because AA1HD with a slash is only 7 characters, or 6 characters, I should say. And then I put the C in the 8th position. This tells the system, route this transmission over to AA1HD module C. Now, to do CCS7 routing, you would really want to do it using DTMF for the most part. Every radio is a little different as to how the DTMF works. But you need to know the user's CCS7 number. And then you would just key down your radio with the PTT and punch in the CCS number using your touchpad. Or if your radio doesn't have one, like the newer ones, you could put it into the DTMF memories and have it send it. To do that, you would need to read your manual as to how to use DTMF on your particular radio. StarNet is another vehicle to do like a chat room. What you would do is you would put into your call field the StarNet server, just like I did the repeater in the your call field for source routing. I would put in whatever the StarNet number is. In the case of the one that I use, it's STN345. And there's different modules, as there are with repeaters or gateways. the way it functions is that all the parties that put that into your call field and key up would kind of register temporarily with that repeater or gateway. And they would hear all traffic that was routed to that gateway by everybody else that's done the same thing. Nobody else would hear it. Unless it's going across a reflector also. So it's important in most cases to disconnect from a reflector if you're able to do the STN routing or StarNet routing. It's a little more complicated. It's not used much that I can tell, but boy, there are a lot of them out there. I even have one up and running, as I said, STN 345 Charlie. If you put that into your call sign, your call field, it would be STN 345. That's 6 characters. A space and a C is 8 characters. In transmit, you'll register with that particular StarNet server and hear all the traffic from everybody else that's there. Now, there's typically not anybody there these days, so it's kind of nice. And you'll stay on there without doing anything for, I believe, 45 minutes. And then you get unregistered unless you key up again. So in order to keep your traffic going across there, you need to keep the STN 345 space Charlie in your call field for every transmission. Now, there is also a way to disconnect so that you're not hearing the traffic if you happen to go someplace else, because like call sign routing, it's going to find you. It's going to know where you are. So as long as you're registered with that particular StarNet server, all the traffic will follow you wherever you go. So if you don't want that to happen, you need to know how to unregister it. And you need to find that out from the owners of the StarNet servers. It is documented on the internet, I believe, in certain places. So with that, that's kind of call sign routing or routing in general, and the different types that you can do. And I'm sure there's something I missed. Like I do hear there is a way to put a CCS7 number in the your call field. I've never tried it, so I can't speak to it. If I do figure it out or play with it or find out how, I'll put up another video. So with that, 73, I hope this helped the call sign routing